Happy April 24th, 2019. This is William from Bearable Traders, and today we are going to look at the controversial hanging man setup. We are going to explain why this setup is controversial, what to do with your entries, your exits, your stops, how to partial, and what to look for. And why is this controversial? Well, when I explain the hanging man to people or to other traders, they oftentimes think it's an instant long entry and indicator, and they're not wrong. The interesting thing is they're not wrong, but they're not right either. What we're doing when we're trading these setups is we are playing a game of risk to reward, and we are understanding that right here we have no idea what's going to happen. Okay, after this candle happens, it could go up, it could go down. We don't know. We're only playing a risk to reward and probabilities, and we're understanding the likelihood if one thing occurs, what will happen then. So it could go down, it could go up. There's not a predetermined price action and we're making a guess. That's not what we're doing. So for the many traders who think this hanging man is a long, let's explain why, and I'll explain what this hanging man is. We've got an uptrend right here, okay? For a hanging man, you need an uptrend. Now the hanging man candle is one with a very short wick on top, a much longer wick on bottom, either 2 or 3 times as long on bottom, and basically no body here. So you want a very flat line or a very small body. That's a hanging man. You can see it kind of looks like a hanging man or a cross, and that's why it's called that. So now, again, if we have this uptrend and the bulls are winning, this could be a flag, right? It could be a flag. It looks like a flag. It's a crystal clear flag potential. And the interesting thing is you're not wrong. That is an indicator of a flag. If you just look at this, and all you need is this high to break as confirmation, and then you're going to have orders triggered. And because we're playing a stock and play, which is Oxy, traders from around the world are looking at this, and they're going to have their orders right here and be waiting for a new 5-minute high for a potential flag up. And you're not wrong. Now, what if we look at other information outside of just this? And we will in a sec. But how do we trade this as a hanging man? And hanging man marks it as a top of a trend. The bulls, it was very bullish here, very bullish here, very bullish here. And then why was this one not bullish, right? Is it a flag and is it consolidation? Maybe, but you need confirmation of breaking out. But it gives you an indicator they lost momentum. The bulls tried to push it up, they broke the 5-minute high, and they failed, and it came back down. Now, with that being said, you need to understand then the bulls, they took over again and pushed it back up. Okay, so it closed with it closed up here rather than on a bearish candle. So it's not a bearish candle, but it's an indicator of a reversal candle. All right, the bulls could not win and continue to push it higher. So that's how you mark it. That's how you play it as a top of a trend. The bulls tried and they failed, and they are trying to take over, but they're not going to. Now, why are they not going to? That's what we need to understand here. So before we get into that, let me just show you that I did trade this. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. There, so I did trade it. Now, you can see this. I actually played it as a 2-minute play at first. And so I'm going to show you this. So just so you don't get confused by the arrows, let's look at the 2-minute chart here. Here, right? I tried to short it at this resistance. All it needed to do was go back down. It stopped me out. Okay, so this was a short on the 2. This was my stop out because my stop was right here. So let's just ignore that for a sec because that was a completely different setup, but with the same thing in mind in terms of resistance. All right. So why do I not like this as a flag? Number one, I'm looking at the daily chart, and even though we've got a strong body coming up at this point, it is on a big dump. So I want to short this. I want to go with the trend, okay? I don't want to catch this knife at the bottom, and a lot of traders did, and they probably made a lot of money. That's not my style to do that. So what I want to do is see this hanging man on the 5-minute at resistance on another time frame. So look at this 200 on the 2 which coincides with this hanging man on the 5, which coincides with this 9 EMA on the 60. So if this daily chart happened to gap up and there was no 9 EMA on the 60, there was no 200 swooping down, and this was an open space here, and it was a potential flag, I think it would be so much more likely that this flag would materialize. But we're at major resistance on a weak stock. And that's why I shorted it, combining different indicators and confirmations on different time frames. So a flag potential that has to go through resistance is a much weaker flag. And if then, again, let's look at it as a hanging man, right? A hanging man right there with resistance on the 2 and the 60 all of a sudden can mark a trend change. Because forget about the second for a candle, right? If we think that stocks move in waves, well, where is it going to wave to? It can go down, it can go up. It's gonna wave back down from an area of resistance, and it'll go up from support, and it'll continue, right? That's what we're trying to bet on here. So now how do I actually play this, all right? Because I've got my resistance that I'm using, as soon as this candle closes, I short it. And you can see I shorted it twice, actually, because at this point I was very confident that I had a very good risk reward. I wasn't confident that I knew what was going to happen, but I was confident that my risk to reward was killer. So I enter right here as soon as this candle closes, and I put my stop either at this level, or right above or below it. Okay, you have your options. For me personally, I no longer put my stops above these candles. I lose too much in slippage, which throws off my risk to reward, and I know on days when it works out, it never gets close to touching my stop. So I go right under this wick of the hanging man. That's what I do, right? To a penny or 1 cent below, so I don't lose in slippage. But again, it might stop me out and then dump. So you can put it 1 cent above. It's a little more likely that you won't get stopped out, but when you do, you're gonna lose in slippage. So remember that. Now, how do I partial out? If I am playing a 5-minute trend change hanging man reversal, I cannot look at the 1. I cannot look at the 2 for partials, because this is going to blow through the 9, the 20 on the 1, the 9, the 20 on the 2. It'll even probably blow through the 50 because I'm playing a 5-minute reversal off of resistance on the 2 and the 60. So the moving averages on the 1 and the 2, they shouldn't matter, okay? So when you play these hanging man, if it materializes, it will break the low of the hanging man. So there's no point to exit out before then. Okay, that's number 1. Now I saw this as a potential level of support, which coincided with the $0.50 60/50, and I was already at a risk to reward of 5 to 1. So heck yeah, I'm partialing out right there. 5 to 1 risk reward, 60/50 potential support. Okay, so then what do I do next? I go a 7 to 1 risk reward. Okay, I'm not caring about the 1 or the 2. I'm caring about risk to reward. And then finally, I noticed this $60 mark, and I'm thinking, all right, if it can actually get to 60, it'll probably hit 60.01, 60, 50.99, 59.99, something like that. So I put a limit order out, which I would have never got filled with the hotkey, at 60.01. And you can see, watch down here, right where I'm circling. When I look at that, 59.95, and my fill was 60.01. Okay. And then I get stopped out, right? And then I saw this level of consolidation right here, and I put my stop at there, and I got stopped out for the rest. And I was hoping for another leg down, but it couldn't, but I already made my risk to reward, okay? So I did the same thing on another stock today, which was eBay. And this time we'll go much quicker here. So it's the same play. And just so you can see, I tried to short it here. I actually got about 20 cents, but I wanted more, and I got stopped out. So when I trade in the first 5 minutes, I go 1/4 size, 1/4 to 1/2 size, honestly. So when I'm wrong, it's very small. So I'm okay with that. Okay, but now let's look at this hanging man again. Let's look at the 5. We have a trend going up. We have the hanging man candle, a little bit bigger body, but a small wick. Large wick going down. Could this be a flag, right? Could this be a flag like that? It could, but I've got this high of day that was so clear of a resistance, okay? So I shorted it right here, right when this candle was closing, with this high of day as my stop. So on this time, it wasn't the body, it wasn't the wick, because I had this high of day that I wanted instead. So I put it right there on the high of day. And this is very nuanced, but if this candle breaks, it's not going to have huge momentum because this other area of resistance that's right above it will have a ton of orders there. So that's why I wouldn't lose slippage on the break of this one. So I was fine with that breaking because this level was right there with a ton of orders that would have filled me before slippage. And then I got in 4 times. I hit my hotkey 4 times right here as I realized what was happening. I was playing a hanging man with very little risk, like 5 cents, with huge support of high of day, no slippage on a 1 to 2 cent stock that wasn't going to gap against me. So I went in heavy. And again, I did not look at the 1 to partial out. I did not look at the 2. It's going to blow through those levels. But let's look at the 1 really quick so you can see the second I got in here, look what happened. Instant dump. That's the power of a hanging man. It instantly shows the reversal and the trend change. Now, you don't get a huge trend change on a strong stock like this. Look, this is a strong stock. It didn't give me a big dump, but if I'm risking 5 cents, guess what? I got 30 cents. That's a 6 to 1. Then I got 40 cents. That's a 8 to 1 or so. And then I put my stop right here at the high of day. At my break even at this point. And look what it went down to. It hit this area of support, right? If stocks move in waves, what does this hanging man tell me? It's a little trend change. Go back down to another area of support, goes back up, and then you just play these ups and downs, these wave patterns. And if you find the tops and the bottoms and how these things work with support and resistance, and you have good risk to reward, and you execute properly and don't partial out early, you can make some really amazing trades in something that looks very difficult to trade because you're risking so little on a smart execution. So if you have any questions about any of that, how to spot them, the entries, the exits, how to partial, anything like that, just remember you need to use multiple time frame indicators and confirmations to really understand it. So thank you so much, and please comment if you have any questions.